Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder when I get off the train and deliver an episode to you while I walk home. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good afternoon, dear listener. It is Tuesday, October 22nd, a windy, blustery, cloudy day, looking dark and grim and full of delight. I'm coming to you from my walk home from the train here in October, thinking about Halloween-themed podcasts. I'm trying to imagine what I might tell you in relation to them. So I just finished listening to the Secret Cabal most recent episode, and in it they did a short topic extravaganza where someone said, is it possible for a game to really scare you? And they're not talking about tension and such, but I thought it might be interesting just to tell you a few tales. It's creepy Halloween time, so I thought I would share tales, or some of them are specific tales, some of them are just other games that do this. So 5 games that I think can be scary. So Jamie talked about that he didn't think games really could be scary, and that he thought really the way you do that is with atmosphere. And I would suggest 2 things. One, I don't think that atmosphere is the only way to make a game scary. And I reject the suggestion in the initial post that tension isn't scary. Honestly, my experience of horror movies is often around tension. The parts of a horror movie that I find frightening are not the cat jumping out from behind a curtain or the zombie jumping out or whatever is jumping out. I mean, those are fun, but that's not, honestly, it's tension that's the scariest. It's knowing something's coming and not knowing what or where or when. That's the creepy part. Ugh. So, in that light, I want to talk about 5 games that I have played that provide a significant amount of tension or fear that I think are scary. And then while I'm talking about it, maybe I'll think of some others, and that'll be that. The number 5 game that I would say is scary is Dead of Winter. Now, Dead of Winter is a zombie game. It has a little bit of a trader game because it's a semi-co-op where you are trying to win on your own, but for most of the players, the condition to win also involves the other players being able to win. That unless you have a trader, everybody is trying to help the colony survive, and it's the survival of the colony that allows you to access your win condition. If you don't survive, or if the colony doesn't make it, then you don't get to make it either. So that's what's going on with Dead of Winter. So the part that's tension-inducing there is each round of Dead of Winter, you have to go on missions, similar to Battlestar Galactica and a number of other games. You contribute cards toward the mission, and then all those cards are revealed. So each person contributes a card or cards into the shared space where people will try to solve a problem. And if the problem gets properly solved, then morale goes up and good things happen. If the problem doesn't get properly solved, bad things happen. Since a trader can put cards in, I always feel a moment of drama when we're revealing those cards. It's not a super intense moment, although sometimes late in the game it could be. But the moment of tension involved before we've revealed the cards to see whether or not they're going to succeed is delicious. And I would say a little scary. As a secondary sideline, the same goes for other games that have this put a card into a mission moment. Your Secret Hitlers, your Avalons, your Battlestars Galactica. All of those have this tension as well, but I think it's most delicious in Dead of Winter because there's not necessarily a trader at the table. So you could have this tension every single round for no reason. And for that reason, Dead of Winter is my number 5 scary game. My number 4 scary game is a game that I like best because it does generate, I think it is scary because it generates atmospheric events, and this is Betrayal Legacy. I also would put Betrayal House on the Hill here, but Betrayal Legacy is newer, so it's a bit scarier. When we play, we read all of the flavor text, and that flavor text is actually pretty creepy. So if you're playing in the right setting, using atmosphere, the flavor text on the cards is reasonably creepy. And the building dread of what's going to happen, especially if the scenario actually is one of the creepier ones rather than one of the sillier ones, is reasonably scary. It's not scary like a horror movie, but I think the emotions it taps into, if you let yourself listen to the narrative, is actual fear. So that's my number 4 game, Betrayal Legacy, or Betrayal at House on the Hill. The number 3 game that I want to point to goes back to tension. And unlike the tension of finding out if there's a traitor in Dead of Winter, this is the tension of randomness. And this is Arkham Horror, the card game. Arkham Horror, the card game is a deck construction game where you put together a deck before you play, and you go around to locations, investigating dangerous things, getting clues, solving problems, fighting monsters, and generally trying to succeed. Throughout the game, there are a variety of times when you have to take various kinds of tests. And there's a bag, a horrible, horrible bag, full of nasty stuff that responds to you taking the test. So it's sort of like a very large die, in one way, that when you take the test, then you reach in the bag and you draw out a token, and that token will hurt you a little, hurt you a lot, clobber you, or perhaps be neutral or even a little positive. But generally in the game, there's like a couple zero. If you play on easy, which we do, in fact, we play on easier than easy because we put extra good tokens in. So we have the Elder Sign, which is a very good token. We have a +1, which generally isn't supposed to be in there. And then there's a couple zeros and a couple -1s. Most of those are fine. But then there's a lot of bad tokens. So the tension involved in reaching into that bag and drawing out that token, or in drawing the cards from the Mythos deck when it's your turn to do that. Those are both wonderful bits of tension that are scary and fun. That's Arkham Horror, the card game, my number 3 scary game. I would say also Arkham Horror uses art quite dramatically to draw you in and give you a particular kind of fright. So that is another tension-focused game, and focused on external or output randomness. The last 2 scary moments in games, I'm actually going to point to as real things that have happened, stories rather than whatever you'd call categories. So like with Arkham Horror, I didn't have a specific time that we were drawing tokens that I was nervous. Rather, there's just the general experience of drawing tokens and being nervous. In these last 2, I'm going to tell specific stories about this nervousness, or about excitement, or about horror. So my second to last story, my number 2 scary game, is a moment of tension. This comes from my favorite play of the game A Touch of Evil. A Touch of Evil is one of my favorite Ameritrash games. It's made by Flying Frog Productions. I've mentioned it many times on the podcast. In A Touch of Evil, you are investigating creepy happenings in colonial America. There's bad stuff happening, and usually there's a bunch of small minions. There's a bunch of small-minded town folks who are keeping secrets. There are some good elders who are trying to help with the investigation. You have several investigators who are trying to solve the problem of the evil spirits. And then you have the terrifying big boss, which you choose at the beginning. It could be a banshee, it could be a scarecrow, it could be a Sleepy Hollow, jack-o'-lantern type figure. It could be a werewolf or a vampire. So we were playing a game, I think it was against the jack-o'-lantern, the evil jack-o'-lantern, but it might have been a werewolf. And we play the co-op mode, so it's very strong. The idea is you're going to gear up and go fight it and try to defeat it. And we had been playing for quite a while, something like 5 hours. The creature was pretty strong. As the game goes along, the creature gets stronger, so it gets harder to defeat. But you also get stronger by picking up items and whatnot. So it's a push-pull there. But we were at the end of a 5-hour game. It was nearly midnight. This was with my in-laws, my mother-in-law, my wife, my daughter, and my wife's sister and her husband. And we were running out of time, both energy-wise and game-wise. And we decided it's now or never, let's go get the werewolf. So we joined up. We all paid the 1 coin that we needed, or 2 coins, to join the investigation into the final location. And we went after the werewolf. So one by one, the way the game works, each player takes turns fighting the werewolf in order until the werewolf is defeated or all the players are defeated. And so into the battle we went, player by player, fighting the werewolf, slowly hitting the werewolf, knocking down its power, but never quite succeeding. And so, toward the end of the fight, we get to our last player. We only have 1 person left who is not defeated. And he is using all of his items. He's using all of his rerolls, round after round, going after the werewolf, slowly taking more and more damage, slowly giving the werewolf more and more damage, until we get to the point where the werewolf has 1 health left and our hero has 1 health left. If the way the game works, if the werewolf takes a hit and the hero takes a hit, we win. You can die trying to defeat the werewolf. And that's just what we did. He stood up, rolled dice, and the moment was so exciting, so full of tension, that we all shouted in cheers, as one would when Freddy Krueger is defeated on screen, or when the Frankenstein's monster is shoved into the fire, or whatever, right? The moment of excitement sent us all to our feet, and in fact woke up other people in the house because we were so noisy. It was fantastic. That was a highlight, one of the things that cemented that game for me as a permanent fixture in my top 10, but also just part of what makes gaming so amazing. And the tension involved in watching those dice go and watching the hit points rack up, but watching our friends fall one after another was so wonderful that it was exactly the sort of thing you see in the final battle against a big monster. So that's my number 2 scary moment. My number 1 scary moment, I think I saved for last. It represents an actual scare that the game created that fits the definition that Jamie was talking about. I have to warn you, this does involve a minor spoiler for a game, just in terms of revealing what's on one of the cards. So, and it's for the game Mountains of Madness. Mountains of Madness is a co-op game set in the Cthulhu story about an expedition to Antarctica that finds creepy old temples in the wilds of the deep Antarctic plain. It's a co-op game built around the idea of madness. As you play, you start to go mad and you start to draw these cards, and the cards give you secret madness activities that during the normal play of the game you don't have to worry about. But when you reach the madness moments, then you have to follow the directions on your card and do what it says, and you're not allowed to acknowledge what it was that made you do the card. One of our first games of this, I drew a card. Here's the spoiler. I drew a card that said, when someone says the word gun, shout. You shout whenever someone says the word gun. The thing is, gun is one of the tokens in the game, and so it's not uncommon during the discussion phase to have someone say, I need 2 guns, or I have 2 guns. And boy, the first time that someone said gun, after I got that, I shouted, "Ah!" I screamed. And everyone at the table jumped. They threw their cards up in the air. It was an authentic jump scare, created by the game and executed by the players as instructed. It was fantastic. I would point to that as a potential ground for future production of this sort of thing in games, is having the players enact these moments. I think there's a lot of potential there. So anyway, that was Mountains of Madness, my number 1 scary moment. Have you had any scary moments in games? Pop over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and let us know about them. Or reach out to me on Twitter, or on Facebook, or on Board Game Geek, where my username is Wombat929. Well, thank you for joining me on this blustery October day, and I look forward to the next time we walk together. Until then, I hope your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye. And if the cards...
You understand if you think I don't understand. Brother, I do understand. I do understand. You don't think I understand.
I'm not sure if that man that passed me was on the phone or just talking out loud. He may have been doing a podcast just like I was.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.